What are you planning to serve on Christmas Day? There are taste tests already underway across the UK. It's about 7:30 at a pub on the North York Moors. Drinks are flowing, the tables are filling up, and punters expecting something tasty.
So what a cracking evening. Blacksmith's Arms, packed out with like really, really, really good people. Young and old, boys and girls, families, all enjoying food of the gods, grouse, fresh off the moors.
I've got grouse roasting in the oven at the moment. We've got hung grouse with crop, hung grouse without crop, and then we've got fresh grouse, which was just shot a few days ago. So we're just doing a taste test to see if people can taste the difference between those three birds.
You basically score priority 1 to 5 on the 1 to 5 that comes out. If you think you know what it is, jot it down. So if you think, oh, that's definitely an old bird, or that's a bird that's been hung, or that's a young bird, write that down as well. If somebody scores the best and gets it absolutely bang on, we'll think of a prize for it.
Are there any placebos at all? Like, is there a vegetarian option at all?
We noticed that the consumer had very strong opinions on what game was, and one of them was that it was very strong. So we were just chatting, and we thought, actually, is it all myths? Or is there some truth in it? Can people, if it's cooked the same way by a really good chef, which Ali is, will they be able to tell the difference?
Annette Woolcock has been running Basque's Taste of Game campaign for a few years, but is rebranding it as Eat Game to reflect market trends.
We have found that through the consumer research, our market has changed considerably. We always thought it was the more older generation that ate the game, and that's where we focused on several years ago. But through the research, it's very much the sort of 20 to 45-year-olds. They're very health conscious. They're very socially conscious. They're very environmentally conscious. They really like game, and because it is healthy and because it is sustainable.
There's one snag. This younger generation likes game, but doesn't like the idea of eating dead birds that have been shot, even at Christmas. Instead, Eat Game's focus will be on promoting sustainability and conservation.
It's great to know what you're eating and where it's actually from. You know, we know the person that shot it, the person that brought it to the door, and the customer knows who cooked it as well. I think it's great that it sort of tells a journey in the story. I think it's what we should be doing.
But it's not what supermarkets are doing.
We need to be moving away from this convenience idea, moving away from going to a supermarket and buying asparagus all year round, etc., etc. We need to completely rethink the way we buy our food, the way we live on the land.
A common question is, why is the UK importing venison from New Zealand when there are so many deer in Scotland being culled?
There's a huge problem. The supermarkets like consistency. And of course New Zealand is all farmed, and therefore it's very consistent. They've got a very strong marketing board over there as well. They put a lot of money into the production and the marketing of venison.
It's to do with a cultural taste. The British palate doesn't like a strong meat, and so in the mass marketing of venison through supermarkets or whatever else, you want consistency of supply. So you want the volume of supply of the meat, and you also want consistency of flavour. And that poses challenges, and it means that's where the trade in venison comes into play, and you get this sort of import and export balance where we export our strong tasting meat to people who appreciate strong tasting meat, or their culinary practice accommodates that into sort of Poland and Germany and into Europe, and we bring in venison from New Zealand to compensate for that.
Is there a way for outreach or education or a particular way of branding that could bring in some, I don't know, just a way to reach people and change this perception of what it should taste like, to open up a sort of internal market for our own product?
I mean, it's a really interesting one. I think most venison now is consumed as a processed product, in that it comes through as a sausage or a burger.
Food is a really important part of your day. Understanding where it's come, preparing it, enjoying it for your benefit and for the pleasure of eating food. And certainly when there are food shortages, it's important that we make the most of all the protein and the nutritious food that we have access to. And people are beginning to realise that when they buy game, that because it is regulated and that people are now trying to be sustainable, that they're not scared to ask questions and that we are all more transparent about it.
If more people put game on the table at Christmas this year because of some of the challenges with deliveries and transport, then fantastic. And I can absolutely guarantee you there's a market out there and many suppliers only too willing to provide good value game meat, which is very nutritious, very good for you, very low fat, and you can virtually source it on your doorstep.
So what else can be done to push the Christmas turkey off the table? BASC has a plan to revamp deer management north of the border in a manner that, the shooting organisation hopes, will make venison more of a festive staple.
So yeah, we've got a plan to basically try and get more communities involved in deer management in Scotland. So at the moment, opportunities are really out of reach, particularly on publicly owned land, and we find that contractors tend to be used more than anyone else on public land. So it's costing the taxpayer about £10.5 million at the moment for that. And what we're saying is that actually there's a better way that we can do this by integrating more local people who also happen to be trained recreational deer stalkers. And I think one of the key issues about getting people involved previously has been this hesitancy about dealing with multiple syndicates and trying to, it then becomes quite a complicated mess. But what BASC are saying that we're going to do with this particular initiative is that we'd actually step in and become the intermediary party between the syndicates on the ground and Forestry and Land Scotland.
There are several game meat marketing initiatives. The Countryside Alliance has Game to Eat. There's the British Game Alliance, recently renamed British Game Assurance, and even the Country Food Trust can be said to be a game meat marketing exercise. Each game aims its marketing firepower at the consumer.
Waitrose this year have said they will honour only British venison through their shelves, which will be really good. Some of it will be parkland and farmed. But it's the step forward which is really encouraging.
Meanwhile, the results from the food tasting are in.
It's still number 2. Well, you're so kind, darling, but we're going to decline on that one. Thank you for asking.
According to Gareth, despite their years of experience, nobody could tell the difference between old, young and hung birds.
I think the general consensus is that older game is tough, chewy, you don't want to touch it, newest is the best, which, that partly that is true, but again, it's just the way you cook it, it's the way you prepare it. I think, people just maybe need to be educated more on the best way to cook older game, which is just cook it slower, as I say, mince it down, use it in sausage rolls, in pies, use it in cottage pie, things like that. And the taste is so much more as well with older birds. It's got a more richer, deeper taste, which is in winter. It's great, nice rich gravy, perfect. So I think it's the way we cook it.